Welcome to Peace News. We're live this Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014. I'm broadcasting from Keene in the Shire. It's 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. We've got news of peaceful resistance to share with you for these next 2 hours. Broadcasting at LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, also at PeaceNewsNow.com/live, where you can see live video as well as a chat room built right into the webpage, so you can chat with other listeners. You can also get interactive with the show by Skyping in, calling Peace News Now on Skype, or dialing 443-424-8347 on your cell phone. That will connect you with our line, which is Hi-Fi Civdis. That's what that number spells out. And then I'll put you on the air. You can share your stories about what's going on in your neighborhood of peaceful resistance, your thoughts on news stories that I share with you, and almost anything else. Coming up today, we've got a story of a political critic, well-known to many, D'Souza, who was sentenced today to confinement. I've got the details on that story. Plus, the White House has no estimate on the costs of the war with ISIS, and I really want to focus on ISIS, the new war in Syria, as Barack Obama has ordered airstrikes, and they have begun. There's one blogger or Twitter personality who's live tweeting from Syria as bombs are being dropped on villages below. 6 weeks in, U.S. airstrikes haven't budged ISIS in Iraq. We'll have that story from antiwar.com. Plus this one, U.S. airstrikes in Syria mark start of a long war. Got all the details on what's going on in Syria. We're going to figure that out and make sense of this world. Plus, there's anti-terrorism training happening in LA, and maybe something that could concern you if you are in the Los Angeles area. But let's go first to this story from Reuters.com by Nate Raymond, who headline, Obama critic D'Souza spared prison for violating election law. What could he mean? Here's the article. Conservative author and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza avoided prison on Tuesday, that's today, when a U.S. judge sentenced him to serve 8 months in a community confinement center after he pleaded guilty to violating campaign finance law. D'Souza, aged 53, was ordered by U.S. District Judge Richard Berman in Manhattan to live in a center, which would allow him to leave during non-residential hours for employment for the first 8 months of a 5-year probationary period. Berman also ordered D'Souza to perform 1 day of community service per week during probation, undergo weekly therapy, and pay a $30,000 fine. D'Souza, a frequent critic of U.S. President Barack Obama, admitted in May to illegally reimbursing 2 straw donors who donated $10,000 each to the unsuccessful 2012 U.S. Senate campaign in New York of Wendy Long, a Republican he had known since attending Dartmouth College in the early 1980s. Quote, "It was a crazy idea. It was a bad idea," D'Souza told Berman before being sentenced. "I regret breaking the law." Prosecutors had sought a 10 to 16-month prison sentence, rejecting defense arguments that D'Souza was, quote, "ashamed and contrite about his crime and deserved probation with community sentence." They cited statements D'Souza made in media interviews after his guilty plea, where he discussed being selectively targeted for prosecution. Yeah, you know, that's what strikes me immediately about this story, is that it seems selective. After these stories about the IRS targeting conservative and Tea Party groups for IRS audits, learning that a popular, I mean, he's almost a mainstream filmmaker. He recently made a documentary about the U.S., I believe, called America, and he's critical of the Obama administration, just like a good patriot, right? He's critical of large government. And it's no surprise that large government, here's a federal court in Manhattan cracking down on him for what? a $20,000 bribe for a couple of people to vote. I'm not even totally clear on what this is. It says he illegally reimbursed 2 straw donors who donated $10,000 each to the unsuccessful campaign of Wendy Long. So here's, I guess there's a limit to how much a person can donate to any politician, right? In an effort to keep money out of politics. How's that working out? So there's a limit of how much individuals can donate. It looks like he wanted to give $30,000 but could only give 10, and so he had 2 of his friends donate on his behalf, and then he reimbursed them. So it looks like, oh, hey, it's 3 people each giving $10,000, when really it's 1 person giving $30,000. Is that really such a crime? Are politicians and lobbyists able to make these sorts of deals? Well, you bet they are. They just don't make it public. So why are they selectively prosecuting one man who's while looking the other way, while hundreds, if not thousands, of lobbyists are making backroom deals with politicians, and always have? This is nothing new. It's not like, oh, the Obama administration's filled with lobbyists and politicians taking bribes. Look back in any what's called with any of the primary sources of politicians back in the 1800s, and they're taking bribes too. I'm sure if you can go all the way back to the writings in the 1700s, they took bribes as well. You know, it occurs to me just off the top of my head that this isn't exactly a bribe, but there's the issue of George Washington, who was a whiskey producer, who went around on horseback after becoming president and enforced a whiskey tariff on his competition, right? So this is another way for those in power to use their power to hurt their enemies. That's really how this seems to me. Let's continue from this story from Reuters.com. Quote, Berman appeared to accept the prosecutor's position, playing a video in which D'Souza talked about selective prosecution, an effort at spin, the judge said. I'm not sure, Mr. D'Souza, that you get it, Berman said before announcing the sentence, and it's still hard for me to discern any personal acceptance of responsibility in this case. The case has prompted criticism among some conservatives who accused the government of selectively prosecuting D'Souza because of his political views. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, whose office brought the case, is an Obama appointee. Despite comments earlier in the hearing, Berman ultimately decided against prison, instead ordering community confinement. Benjamin Brafman, D'Souza's lawyer, had argued no defendant in a case like D'Souza's had previously been sent to prison. I'm just relieved, and I want to thank the judge for imposing a fair sentence, D'Souza said after Tuesday's hearing. The Indian-born D'Souza wrote the 2010 bestseller The Roots of Obama's Rage and co-directed a 2012 film, 2016, Obama's America, which painted a bleak picture of the nation's future if the Democratic president was re-elected. Prosecutors said D'Souza asked 2 friends and their spouses to contribute $10,000 each to Long's campaign and then reimburse them. Campaign finance regulations at the time limited individual donations to $5,000 maximum during an election cycle. You know, it occurs to me, it says at the time was limited. Has that since changed, since that infamous Supreme Court decision? And as I say infamous, the name totally escapes me. It's like the people versus whatever, where it said basically that corporations are people and that they can give as much money to politicians' campaigns as they would like. Has that law changed? And if the law has changed, well, why wouldn't D'Souza be excused? You know, if it were a crime, it used to be a crime, what he did, but then the crime was removed, well, why wouldn't he be excused? It's like the same thing where if a state makes marijuana legal after it was previously prohibited, and a person is arrested for having cannabis just the day before it becomes quote-unquote legal, why should they go to jail? This is Peace News.
Every day you make investment decisions. When you do business with and hold U.S. dollars, you make an investment in the soundness of the moral philosophy and the potential longevity of the United States hegemony. People who claim a monopoly on violence around the world. If this is the investment that you want to make, please keep listening to LRN.FM. If not, stop using their currency. Use Bitcoins. Get educated. We use coins.com.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way.
You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa. Hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video or audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today. This is, you ain't gonna make, wait a minute.
Forget it.
Whoa. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. If you can't listen to the Liberty Radio Network's internet streams, free satellite channel, or radio affiliates, no worries. You can listen to LRN.FM from any phone, anywhere. Add this number to your phone. 213-493-0309. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The Liberty Radio Network listen lines are locked into our stream 24 hours a day. Call 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
Liberty activists around the country are starting to realize politics alone won't set us free. So what will? At Liberty on the Rocks, we believe the answer starts with living your principles, spreading ideas, and connecting with those around you. By starting a Liberty on the Rocks network, you can make a difference by uniting libertarian thinkers. Find out how much fun it is to build your local network from the ground up. Visit libertyontherocks.org today to get started.
DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phone, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.lrn.fm. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit the Liberty Radio Network when you shop at Amazon via shop.lrn.fm. Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd. Get your tickets now at keenvention.info. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key Liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, attend social events like the costume party. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, James Robin Hood Cleveland, Rich Paul, and Free State Project President Carla Garrick will be keynoting. And we'll have all kinds of panels, including the new Cop Block panel and the new Movers panel hosted by the outlaw Josie Wales. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info.
You can watch the LRN Studio Cam and chat with other listeners anytime at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
Welcome back. This is Peace News. In the last segment, we were talking about one critic of Obama who has been caged in a way. He hasn't been sent to prison, as he certainly could have been. However, for violating campaign finance law, which is currently no longer the law, he has been punished to a 5-year probationary period, plus the first 8 months of which he'll have to serve in a confinement center, a community confinement center. They try and put a good face on these things by using euphemisms, but it's really like a day jail. He's allowed to leave for residential hours for employment, but just consider this is a human being who is a productive member of society. All he did was offer money to a politician to be used in a campaign to, presumably promote herself, use advertising, and she ended up losing anyway. So why punish this man? Who has he harmed? And how is this going to correct that harm? How are any victims made whole by this punishment? It really seems to be a case of political prisoner to me. But we move on to a much more pressing and important story. The U.S. is now at war with Syria. The U.S. began airstrikes overnight. Reading from antiwar.com, overnight the Obama administration began a new phase of what's shaping up to be an extremely long war across the Middle East, bombing several buildings in the ISIS de facto capital of Raqqa. So here is a clip. This is from Post TV. Take a listen. The headline is, U.S. military leaders say strikes in Syria are just the beginning of a long campaign. Take a listen. The U.S. military and coalition of Arab nations launched airstrikes against the Islamic State operatives in Syria on Tuesday. And there are the bombs landing on the cities in Syria.
الغارة العاشرة على مدينة البكماء جراء الغارات التحالف الغربي.
These are the images of the rubble left after the U.S. bombed the people of Syria. This morning, this is what happened with your tax dollars this morning.
ها هو التحالف الغربي ينفذ الغارات جوية على المدنيين.
So obviously there are no subtitles here. There are people digging out for their friends and family, looking below, reaching out throughout the day and night, lifting people out from underneath the rubble. Is this endearing the Syrian people to the United States? This video purports to show villagers from Kafr Daryan, a town west of Aleppo, examining wreckage described from a rocket used in the airstrikes. There's some more of the damage. You can see the bent and twisted metal, the wreckage, and it's labeled just another gift from the American military. Very concerning if you are a person who promotes peace. This is a very serious beginning of another war, and it's almost hard to keep track of all of never-ending wars that the Obama administration, not just the Obama administration, I mean, it seems like it's every president. Clinton bombed, or George Bush bombed Iraq, then Clinton bombed Iraq, then George Bush Jr. bombed Iraq and Afghanistan, and now Obama is bombing Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. And the list goes on and on. I mean, will the entire Middle East be enveloped in smoke? Headline from antiwar.com, U.S. airstrikes on Syria mark start of a long war. This article by Jason Ditz just this morning. He writes, the attacks began with Tomahawk missile strikes fired from a U.S. destroyer in the Red Sea, and were followed up by U.S. bombers, including B-1s, and fighter jets attacking the city. No casualty numbers on ISIS were clear at this point, though officials insisted everything hit was a headquarters or some important training center. Surprisingly, the U.S. also attacked a second, completely unrelated group, Khorasan, which it accused of planning to attack U.S. interests. Those attacks killed 30 fighters of the al-Qaeda-linked faction and 8 civilians. Whoops. Guess you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, right, U.S. military? I guess those 8 civilians will just think it's perfectly excusable that they had to die so that the U.S. military could kill 30 Al-Qaeda fighters. But we have a caller who'd like to share some thoughts. Caller from the 248 area code. You are on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hi there, caller. Oh, and he dropped off. So you can call in and share your thoughts. Our number is 443-424-8347. We want to hear from you. What do you think about this new war in Syria? Did you even know it was happening? Do you condone the actions of the U.S. military? And if so, are you paying for it? Are you willing to break out your checkbook and write an extra 1,000 or 2,000 to the boys in camo who are dropping bombs on your brothers and sisters across the world? Well, returning to the article at antiwar.com, Jason Ditz writes that President Obama sought to tout the attacks as part of a broad coalition attack on ISIS, with Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia all launching airstrikes as well. In Iraq, the airstrikes have been couched as an important move to support ground offensives by Iraqi and Kurdish troops. That, of course, wasn't really working to start with, but even the pretext of Allied ground forces doesn't exist near Raqqa. Instead, officials are hanging their hopes on the new stance to me. But let's see, it says that means the U.S. will likely be bombing Raqqa just for the sake of bombing Raqqa for a solid 12 months before there's any chance of getting this new U.S. proxy into the region. Well, we'll hear more about how this is bound to be a long war and get to Jason Ditz's reasons why the U.S. is even involved here. Why is the U.S. bombing Syria? We'll have all these answers and more. Stories of peaceful resistance plus your calls when Peace News returns.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on...
Hey, Liberty Phoenix.
Hey, Derek. How's your night going?
It's awesome. You?
I'm doing pretty well. Just got done hanging out with my kids, so that was always nice.
Cool. I didn't know you had little ones.
Yeah, 2 little girls.
Congratulations.
You know, it strikes me as, you were saying, how does everybody feel about this new war? I don't really see it as a new war because the federal government, I don't think, has ever stopped being at war in the 200+ years it's been in existence.
That's a very good point. I'd like you to hold that thought and share it when we return.
Sure thing.
All right.
Communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
Shiny badges on your jacket. Shiny badges.
This is Davi Barker from ShinyBadges.com, and I just want to personally apologize for airing a jingle week after week, month after month, that turned out to be such an infectious brainworm. So to make it up to you, I'm offering a free gift. The next time you make a purchase at ShinyBadges.com, write worms in the transaction comments, and I'll send you something weird.
The federal government would like to remind you that while some will tell you to think for yourself, this is not necessary, as we have taken care of this for you. Simply pledge allegiance to those who keep you safe and avoid dangerous behavior, worst of which, questioning authority. How long do you want to live in blissful ignorance while each day the state assumes more power over you and your stuff? Do you remember signing off on that? Or do you accept it because it is what it is? I'm sure it feels real nice to tune out, hang out at the mall with your BFFs, and if you have a problem, just vote for the other power-hungry political party for your solutions. I don't have the luxury because one day I found something out. I own myself. And you know what useful thing is in there? My brain! The state can keep trying to tell you what to do from the barrel of a gun, but it's up to you to decide who controls your thoughts. Free your mind from the status quo. It's the first step towards reclaiming your liberty. Well, you got us there. Listen to Cody O'Connor's Off the Air Live every Thursday and Saturday night at 10 Eastern. It's dangerous, hilarious, and live on LRN.FM.
Did you know that you can listen to LRN.FM 24/7 via our free-to-air satellite channel? From Mexico to Canada, our signal covers nearly all of North America. All you need is a view of the southern sky, an affordable receiver, and a dish as small as 30 inches. There are no monthly fees. Learn more at sat.lrn.fm. Plus, if you're a broadcaster or want to be one, this is a good delivery method for our content. See our coverage map and get details at sat.lrn.fm. That's sat.lrn.fm.
If you are struggling to pay or haven't been making your student loan payments, listen carefully to this urgent alert. Have you been out of school for 10 or more years and you're still making your student loan payments? Are your student loans past due or even in default? Can't go back to school because of an old student loan problem? Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. One quick 10-minute call could help you solve your student loan problems. So call right now. Not available in all states. Payments may vary based on income. 800-215-6813. 800-215-6813, 800-215-6813, 800-215-6813.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Welcome back. This is Peace News, and you can call in, share your thoughts of peaceful resistance by Skyping us at PeaceNewsNow or calling in 443-424-8347. Before we left off, I asked, what do you think about this new war in Syria? And on the line, we have Liberty Phoenix.
Hey, everybody. It just strikes me that this doesn't really seem like a new war. I can't really recall any time in the last 200-plus years where America hasn't been the federal government, those that control the American military, haven't been trying to kill somebody for whatever arbitrary reason.
Okay, so it's not a new war. So when will it end?
That is, I think, that's the question of our time. When will aggression against other people end?
Not just aggression. When will these wars end? I mean, aggression, that's a much longer thing. I mean, but wars, don't they normally end? Isn't there usually a thing called peacetime? Like there's wartime. There can only be wartime if there's such a thing as peacetime. But I was born in 1989, and so far as I know, I've never lived in a peacetime. Will I ever?
Not as long as we have this so-called war on terror. I mean, how do you have a war on some arbitrary idea? You can't. It's not a winnable war. That's not a time. There's no time in history where it'll be an end to the war on terror. It's an impossibility. It's like saying when do we evolve into the fourth dimension? It's not.
Why is it an impossibility? Why do you say that?
Because the powers that be, until they're, well, maybe that is the answer to it, until the powers that be, until the psychopaths and the sociopaths that run the world stop trying to compete with one another for power and control.
But wait a minute, Costa Rica doesn't even have a military. So it's not the powers that be. It's just the U.S. It's not like all countries are at war with each other. There's one empire who's been waging war with the rest of the world for the last 50 years. And I'm wondering, when is it going to end? And what can people like you and me, Liberty Phoenix, what can we do about it here at home? If we want this to stop, I mean, what can we do?
I think the only real way to, the most effective way to make it stop is to teach our children. I mean, it's the most effective, but it's the one that's also going to take the longest, because it takes a really long time for children to understand the concepts of nonviolence if they haven't been immersed in it from birth. You know, we're fighting a battle against nature that these children have been taught and indoctrinated to believe is the right way to deal with things, through violence and attacking people. I'm sure if the Bush family had never decided that they were going to spank people and murder people and steal from different companies, George Bush and George Bush Sr. and Jeb, they probably would not be the authoritarian sociopaths that they are today.
It sounds like what you're suggesting is something of a moral revolution, some resurgence or maybe introduction for the first time ever of ideas of total freedom, total peace, non-initiation of the use of force. Sorry, I've got another caller on the line, but I won't.
Well, that is certainly what I'm saying.
You.
I mean, and I'll jump off so that I don't monopolize the time. But yes, I would love to see a moral revolution in the hearts and the minds of people instead of with arms and weapons.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next caller, was there anything else you wanted to share?
Love everybody. All right. Namaste.
Rock on. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have James Witt. James, you are on Peace News.
I just wanted to answer all Liberty Phoenix's immoral, thoughtless questions to his face on the air, so to speak, but I guess you don't want to link us up. But as far as I can remember, in all of moral human history, murder has been against the law, but it still happens every day.
Yeah.
And I know there will never be a law that good people will ever be able to pass that'll make murder go away. I don't know what Bush or sociopathic family that he likes to refer to them as such has to do with the issue on the table, something called the Islamic State. Now, if anybody that knows stuff about Syria, and we're not going over there to kill Syrians, Derek J. We're going over there to kill Islamists that have actually declared war on their fellow Syrians of non-Islamist descent.
Bombs don't discriminate.
That's right. And ISIS started it, Derek J. Bombs don't discriminate. When they're aimed properly, they do. My father was an artillery commander, Derek J. He didn't aim bombs at children, but he has no doubt, killed some children in the north of France and in western Germany because Nazis.
Given that the U.S. has now killed 8 civilians as of this morning and allegedly killed 30 members of Al-Qaeda, do you think that's worth it, James?
How many civilians has ISIS killed, Derek J?
3,
and what do you think we're going to do about it? Oh, really?
Isn't that the count? I mean, the beheadings?
Path that ISIS is gone. You can name 3 people whose heads they've chopped off of.
Right. Okay, yes. I misunderstood the question. Yeah, there are probably many more people, civilians that they've killed.
How many do you think?
Probably more than 8. So, but I'm not saying 2 wrongs make a right. Like, oh, well, we killed more of them, they killed more of us. It's that. Do you think, maybe this is the question, you mentioned your father and said that he could do more targeted killings and really only hurt the bad guys. So if that were years ago, don't you think the U.S. could do a better job, the U.S. military, don't you think they could do a better job today of killing the bad guys and leaving the innocent unharmed?
Leave aside the suggestion that is the intent of any of the bombs that are fired by U.S. military, Derek J. Every single one of them is the intent to kill the enemy, never to kill innocents. The fact that you didn't hear what I said, by the way. I know my father no doubt killed innocent people when he aimed artillery at Nazis, surrounding themselves around innocent people, because ISIS has the same thing in common with Nazis. They surround themselves with innocent people, and they get their rocks off here, and people like you blame Americans for the innocent people being murdered because of ISIS. Now, if you have another suggestion for Barack Obama or Bush Cheney or Clinton or all the other presidents you instigated as being some kind of murderers, because we must like to do this for the military-industrial complex, like Liberty Phoenix was implying, which is, who is he calling sociopath? Why does he have a mirror?
I want to answer your question. What is my suggestion is that they leave them alone. That we all say, okay, let's stop all this. Let's stop the violence, and let's go home. I think that's what they should do.
Respond to that idiocy. And it is idiocy.
That's
because
why is that idiocy?
Jihadism, these jihadis, and you can watch all the videos. They're on BoobTube, Derek J. They're not blaming America for doing this, and they're claiming they're doing it because Allah is great, Muhammad is his messenger, and the Hadith commands them to do such things, Derek J. And they've been doing, the jihadis are just like racist, just like anti-Semites, they're around for thousands of years. And a lot of them like to commit murder, and they have been doing it for thousands of years, and they're not going to stop. And they, by the way, they especially hate gay people. They especially despise male-seeking males.
They do, yes.
And they stone you to death for fun.
Yes, these are horrible people. I don't disagree with you, James, that these are horrible individuals who do nasty things and make the world a worse place. By saying that we should leave them alone, I'm not condoning their behavior. I'm saying it's acceptable. It's just none of my business. I should stay out of it. I have no reason to be in the Middle East, nor do I have any reason to pay mercenaries to go drop bombs on people in the Middle East. But I'm always welcome to more of your thoughts. You can call in, take control. Skype us Peace News Now.
Russell.
I had to cut you off there, but we are on our commercial break moment. What's that?
How much pot do you smoke? We weren't over there in Syria while ISIS was on the warpath. Now we're going over there to help the innocents to get rid of ISIS because they're on the warpath. But if we pull out of there, ISIS will go further on the warpath, just like all marauding murderers do that believe that God is commanding them to do it. We can completely pull out of the Middle East entirely. Not one white-skinned person could be in the Middle East, and they still be doing this because they've been doing it ever since Muhammad came around and told them that they should do that.
So what?
So then don't talk about it at all. If you don't give a fuck about them in the first place, then don't bring it up. But when you suggest that we need to get out of there before so that ISIS will stop doing it, is why I asked.
No, it's not so that anything. It's just we need to get out of that because it's immoral.
Really?
Yeah.
It's immoral to kill murderers? I don't think it's immoral to kill marauding murderers.
Why don't you go do it?
Why don't? Oh, really? Is that all you got? I support the people that are going over there to do something about it. I don't.
How do you support them?
With my tax money, proudly, and I. So
why don't you cut them a check? Why don't you cut them an extra check?
Tax, Jarek J.
No, cut them more. You support this war.
You live in a funny church, by the way. You live in a church, by the way. Call me crazy.
Hey, do we have another caller on the air?
Why don't you come up with something better, by the way?
I think we have another caller. I appreciate your call, James. I'm going to let you go. Thank you. Hey, other caller from the 248 area code. You're on.
Okay.
We're on the middle of a break at the moment, so if you'll hold tight, we will be back in just 2 minutes. Can you hold on?
I'm happy to.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Ladies, with a U.S. divorce rate near 30% in this job market, matter. Breast enhancement, a reduction, a tummy tuck, or a little lipo can work wonders on you and your confidence. With hospital rates at fractions of U.S. prices, and thanks to the recent Thai coup, unheard of low airfare and jaw-dropping deals on luxury hotel rooms. Provide a little info. Get a quote. Hit us up at AsiaRunLikeHellGuide.com.
Now that you've found the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, you may want to help expose others to our great programs. To assist you in doing so, you'll find resources at promote.lrn.fm, including details on how to get a free bumper sticker, quarter-page flyers you can print out and distribute, banners for your website, as well as files that will allow you to make your own custom banners and graphics. Visit promote.lrn.fm and help bring new listeners to the Liberty Radio Network. That's promote.lrn.fm.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important...
Hey, callers, so that I know how to introduce you when I bring you
Eric.
Your name is Eric?
Yeah, I see.
Okay, Eric, and where are you calling from?
Chicago.
Okay, terrific. I look forward to speaking with you just in 30 seconds.
Likewise.
Or you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your AMP will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live from people looking for talk radio online and on the air. Find out about giving to our Google AdWords campaign at amp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip-in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
Welcome back. This is Peace News. You can listen live at lrn.fm and at libertymovementradio.com. Also broadcasting at derekj.me. That's my personal website. So if you enjoy this type of content, you want to see what else I produce, go to derekj.me and see all the fun video and audio that I have there waiting for you. On the line, we have a caller, Eric, from Chicago. You can call in and share your thoughts by dialing in like Eric did. 443-424-8347 is our call-in line, or just send a Skype contact request to PeaceNewsNow, and I'll put you on the air like Eric. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hey, Derek. I got to tell you, I sort of identify with the frustration of the previous caller. I think that there's some things that you say that sort of are not congruent with what things that you've said previously in this show.
Okay. Maybe you can point those out for me.
Okay. One thing that I heard you say was that wanting us to stay out of a situation does not mean you're condoning it.
Yeah.
But it sort of means that you're permissive of it. And if it's an extreme situation, in a place that has already experienced so much turmoil like Syria, I don't think that the option of sitting back and watching people suffer is reasonable. Are we causing did we cause suffering by bombing? I think, I'm a little bit conflicted about that.
Yeah, I follow the principle of first do no harm. Like all doctors swear an oath, first do no harm.
But we're not talking about medicine. We're talking about something different. And when a country is being invaded, I really think that if you sit back and watch, you're potentially looking at a genocide. They tried to corner some people just a few weeks ago in a mountain range, and because we dropped humanitarian aid to these people, and we did some bombing to clear an area so that they could escape, we saved like 40,000 people's lives.
Caller, would you agree that the situation which exists currently is due to U.S. intervention?
Not in Syria.
But in the Middle East, you think...
Well,
okay.
The Middle East is a diverse place. It's always been an area that was very sectarian with a lot of different factions.
So tell me, what responsibility does a citizen of Costa Rica have to intervene on behalf of the people of Syria?
They're trying to save their lives. If it's a political reason and it's that they're contributing to an effort of trying to protect a population from having to live under a rule that is going to be inflicted on them, then I think anybody that's willing to contribute to a coalition is contributing to something that I don't think that this is like Iraq, but if that's what you're suggesting.
No. I'm just saying that there's nothing special about the people of the United States that they should be involved and Costa Rica shouldn't, for example, or Belgium shouldn't. I mean, why should the U.S. be the police of the world?
Because we have interests around the world, A. And
do you have interests around the world?
Excuse me, I'm going to answer your question.
Well, you said we, and no, wait a minute.
Excuse
me, I'm the one who's in control of the microphones here. I asked you a question, and you answered that we have interests around the world. Are you talking about you and me, or are you talking about the federal government? And if so, do you have any interests around the world?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to tell you what they are. I mean, I lived in the Middle East for many years.
So will you go and fight?
I'm not going to go and fight.
Why not?
That's not because what is happening. First of all, I have responsibilities, and I'm not interested in putting myself in harm's way.
Well, that's interesting because you're interested.
Let me finish, Eric. If you're going to try to put me in a corner, I'm not interested in speaking. I'm trying to not be oppositional.
Well, you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is.
Derek, that's really offensive. It really is. The things that you say and the things that you're suggesting.
Well, you don't want to go and fight.
I don't want to go and fight anywhere against anyone.
But you want to make me pay for the
Derek,
fighting.
I'm gonna leave because
you're raising your voice.
You're putting words in my mouth right now.
No, you've said that you don't support fighting.
Will you stop interrupting me, please, and let me say what I want to say?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Please don't interrupt.
I've dropped your call. Fuck you. Excuse me, but you don't tell me how to run my show. I'm sorry. I'm polite to a point, and then when you want to back into a corner and say that I'm being inconsistent by advocating the principle of first do no harm, and that we have interests around the world, including the Middle East, when you're really talking about yourself, and then you say that it's somehow moral to enslave me to you and the rest of the population in the U.S., to make me pay for wars that you endorse, that's offensive. The idea that you could conscript me to pay for your wars, that's offensive. The principle that it doesn't matter whether or not I consent to my money being stolen to be used on bombs which blow up innocent people around the world. And this isn't in my imagination. This is what I shared with you on screen. You saw it for yourself, the rubble. People being lifted from underneath blown up buildings. And this is what you support. So excuse me if I interrupt when you're on your moral crusade to make other people pay for your wars. But I won't live in a world where the U.S. is the police of the world. I won't support a system where warmongers can enslave the peaceful people, the productive people, and make them pay for bombs. The situation that exists today in the Middle East is due to U.S. intervention. Al-Qaeda has said it. Osama bin Laden has said it. ISIS has been clear. They want the intervention to stop. So you folks who call in and say, oh, just a little more intervention is the way to go. That's how we get peace and freedom, just a few more bombs. Oh, yeah, some civilians are going to die, but you can't let a massacre happen. That would be a genocide, so we have to kill more people? That's not a principled response. And I won't have that pumped over the Peace News airwaves. So yeah, I'll say it. Fuck you. Fuck you and everyone who wants to conscript me to pay for your wars. Grow a pair. Go and fight for what you believe, but don't make me do it. I want peace. And that means respecting consent. And I don't consent to murder. Let's return to this article from antiwar.com. Jason Ditz writes that officials have said this would be a long war, with President Obama suggesting the conflict would also be a problem for his successor, and probably the one after that. The enormous undertaking of 12 months of bombing for no chance of gain on the ground then likely seems small to officials envisioning another decade of conflict, with new goals and escalations all the time, and U.S. ground troops liable to get added to the war sooner rather than later. Liberty Lubber is on the air on Peace News. Go ahead and share your thoughts, Liberty Lubber.
Hey, what's going on, Derek?
Hey, it's going well. How are you?
Hey, sounds good, man. Hey, man, I wanted to comment on how a lot of people are talking about frustration. You know what I'm frustrated about? Fucking blind patriotism. We're $14 trillion in fucking debt. How are we paying for these fucking wars that we don't need? That's what I'm frustrated about.
That's a great point.
I tell you, one way we are paying for it is because of the federal fucking reserve printing money that's unconstitutional. That's what I'm frustrated about, Derek J.
I share your frustration, Liberty Lubber. That is a real concern, because not only are the U.S. empires fighting with trillions of dollars of other people's money, they also print the money through the Federal Reserve, as you mentioned. So they're debasing the monetary supply, stealing from those who save. That's a real concern. I appreciate your thoughts. Anything else you want to share with us tonight before we go?
No, that's all I want to say, man. I'm frustrated too.
Thank you.
Fuck all those other guys.
Thank you, man. Peace. This is Peace News. You can share in. Call in. Share your thoughts. Skype us at PeaceNewsNow or call 443-424-8347. Peace News.
Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd. Get your now at keenvention.info. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, attend social events like the costume party. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, James Robin Hood Cleveland, Rich Paul, and Free State Project President Carla Garrick will be keynoting. And we'll have all kinds of panels, including the new Cop Block panel and the new Movers panel hosted by the outlaw Josie Wales. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info.
Instead of just listening, you can also watch. See the Liberty Radio Network's Keene, New Hampshire-based live shows via our studio cam at cam.lrn.fm. Plus, you'll still be able to listen to the Liberty Radio Network via the cam feed in high quality 24/7, even when there's no live show being produced in our Keene studio. But wait, there's more. Our chat room is built into the cam page so you can interact with other listeners online. Listen, watch, and chat, all free at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
I love My Magic Mud. I drink a lot of coffee. I had stains on my teeth. Then I found My Magic Mud, and I was told it would remove stains. So I paid attention when I brushed the first time. My Magic Mud is black tooth powder, and the difference it made in my teeth in one application was noticeable. With 4, my teeth were as white as you normal folks out there. Please go to mymagicmud.com and buy a jar. There's 150 applications for $25. You can use Bitcoin, mymagicmud.com.
More Peace News Now is coming up next, live after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
From Keene, the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014. Silver is trading at $17.80 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,228 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $399. Antiwar.com reports Yemen's Houthi rebels are shoring up their control of the capital city of Sana'a after shoring up several government buildings over the weekend. The Shiite tribal faction is backing protesters who had been calling for regime change in the city and is also moving harshly against the Sunni-dominated military leadership. Fighting stalled on Monday as the Houthis set up checkpoints around the city and military leaders went into hiding. The Houthis claim a deal to see a new technocratic government appointed within a month. After President Hadi was installed in a single-candidate vote, he set up a mostly powerless government and tried to maintain considerable direct control. The new government reportedly will include both significant numbers of Shiite minority politicians and secessionist figures from southern Yemen. In the meantime, with locals fearing violence could again erupt at any time, medical officials are clearing the streets of corpses left rotting in the streets from the weeks of fighting. 200 more bodies were recovered, bringing the confirmed death toll to 340 from the fighting. FPP Radio News is brought to you by Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. For over 35 years, Roberts & Roberts has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They now take Bitcoin for purchasing precious metals so you can turn your profits into a long-term investment. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on investing. 800-874-9760. Reuters reports a Louisiana judge ruled on Monday in favor of a same-sex couple, saying the state's ban on gay marriage is unconstitutional. The ruling compels the state to recognize the out-of-state marriage of the plaintiffs in the case, but its full extent is not immediately clear because it is temporarily under seal, according to Bruce Parker, a spokesman for Equality Louisiana. St. Welton Gaddy, president of Interfaith Alliance and a Monroe-based pastor, said in a statement, "This judgment of the court is a sign of hope amid the maelstrom of despair and confusion that Louisiana's LGBT community has lived through recently." Louisiana Attorney General Buddy Caldwell plans to appeal the decision directly to the state's Supreme Court. His office did not immediately return messages seeking comment. The ruling comes as the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to take up the question of gay marriage bans during the next term, which starts in October, in what is likely to be the most momentous civil rights case in years. Earlier this month, a federal judge in New Orleans ruled in favor of the state's marriage ban in a break from other recent federal rulings on the issue. ExpressCoin is the best choice for buying Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and more. ExpressCoin prides themselves on their customer service, so much so that the back end of the website should allow them to be even more focused on your needs. Get your cryptocurrencies with money order, check, wire transfer, or cash deposit. Get started at expresscoin.fppradio.com. That's expresscoin.fppradio.com. Antiwar.com reports the Obama administration is seeking to avoid any discussion of the massive cost of the new war against the Islamic State, with the White House pointedly refusing to provide any estimates on what the war has cost so far or what it will cost in the future.
Hey, thanks for calling in. Can you hold? I'm on a break.
I hear you. It's all good.
Cool. All right, I'll be with you in 2 minutes.
Could end up being a drop in the bucket. The refusal to provide
Are you calling from Keene?
simply stubbornness about
No, I'm actually in Austin, Texas.
In Austin, Texas. Cool. Okay, and shall I use your full name or a pseudonym?
Just call me Shinobi. I'm Shinobi from the chat room.
Excellent. Got it.
might not even be clear to the war planners. The last Iraq war, which spanned from 2003 to 2010, cost over $2 trillion. The new war aims to not only target the Islamic State inside of Iraq, but in neighboring Syria as well, and as the war goals continue to mount, so does the unfunded liability that is the new open-ended war. President Obama has been honest about the length of the war in recent comments, saying ending the conflict is something that will be up to the president after him, or likely the one after that. This has been FPP Radio News. Radio.com.
Sources close to area man Michael Hughesmer confirmed this week the unmotivated 29-year-old loser continues to waste his time living a contented life in his hometown near his closest friends and family members and has no intention of leaving. Former classmates told reporters the directionless bum has no ambition to leave his close-knit community for an expensive and stressful life in a big city and is apparently satisfied with remaining a pitiful nobody for the remainder of his unassuming existence.
While most of us with dreams got ourselves dingy apartments and soul-crushing jobs in the city years ago, Michael just stayed behind. Humdrum existence of regular contact with parents and a town of people who express genuine appreciation for his presence. Honestly, it's pathetic.
In the time it took you to watch this video, you could have read one of Shakespeare's sonnets, listened to an etude by Chopin, or taken in one of the masterworks from the golden age of Dutch painting. The Onion applauds your excellent taste. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Welcome back to Peace News. We're live at lrn.fm and also at derekj.me. This is the top second hour on the Tuesday, September 23rd edition, episode number 118 of Peace News. Broadcasting from Keene in the Shire, so good to be with you. I am your host, Derek J., and you can call in, share your stories of peaceful resistance, or share your opinions on the stories we're talking about. Currently talking about ISIS and the new war in Syria. You can send a Skype contact request to PeaceNewsNow, or dial in 443-424-8347. On the line now, we have Shanobi from the chat room in Austin, Texas. Welcome, Shanobi.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, it's going great. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. You know, it's just a nice night listening to talk about war and hating it.
Yeah.
But, you know how it goes.
Yeah, it's one of the things about being a principled person in 2014, if you're aware and tuned into what's going on, it can be frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, you know what you ought to look up? I tuned in late, so I don't know if it even came up yet, but you ought to do a Google search for a story that was posted in The Independent, the UK newspaper, back in 1993, called Anti-Soviet Warrior Puts His Army on the Road to Peace. You familiar with this story?
No.
No. What it is it's a story basically talking about how great Osama bin Laden is and talking about his efforts against the Soviets.
Wow.
It's a reporter.
Okay, so I just Googled it. I just Googled it and found it. Anti-Soviet warrior puts his army on the war for peace, and I'm going to do a screen share so our listeners at home, viewers, can see what it is you're talking about here. So go on.
Yeah, no, it's just pretty insane. I mean, basically what it is it's some, reporter from the UK bloviating about some public works project that he's doing in Sudan, building some sort of road. But it's the same sort of thing that we're dealing with now. It's just that sort of blowback element from, back then we thought that Osama bin Laden was our best friend in the Middle East, and we thought that he was going to get rid of the Soviets for us. And what exactly happened with bin Laden? Do we know? Oh, that's right, the 9/11 attacks. And before that, what happened with our intervention in Iran with the Shah. And in the Sykes-Picot agreement, and what's happened with that with Saudi Arabia and Israel. I mean, it's pretty undeniable. I mean, I don't know where these other callers get this notion from that maybe this intervention is going to work out this time, but we have about a century and more, depending on how far you want to stretch it back, of evidence showing that that's a pretty ridiculous concept.
Yeah, I think it's just ignorance of history, as well as maybe some blind false hope, or maybe some abuse even from parents who, and indoctrination from the government schools. I don't know what it is that gets people to cling to these bad ideas that intervention and murdering strangers overseas is going to endear them to us, but that's what they believe, and I think it's crazy. It needs to be pointed out and pointed out as crazy, so that people no longer believe it. So boil this down for us. You sound like a guy who's got his finger on the pulse of what's been going on generally with world affairs. Tell us, what's really going on, Shanobi, in your opinion?
Well, I do listen to Scott Horton, so But anyway, yeah, what's really going on? I don't know what's really going on, man. All I know is that we're basically just falling for the same sort of trap that we fell into before, over and over again, where these people that essentially have an agenda to bankrupt our country. Well, sorry, not our country, but the United States.
I appreciate that correction. Yeah, that's something we don't mention enough on this show. The Free Talk Live does it a lot, but distancing oneself in one's own mind by divorcing the language one uses to associate or disassociate from the state. So, for example, saying our government is attacking Syria or we are attacking Syria would be inaccurate. That's not an accurate statement. The U.S. military is attacking Syria, not us.
Yeah, our troops as opposed to those poor bastards. Right, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, essentially, yeah, that's what it is. It comes down to the fact that basically every politician that ever gets into office is looking for something to give him a legacy. And every time that one of these opportunities for intervention comes along, basically what it's doing is, they see that these people are attacking Americans or civilians or whoever it is that's over there, and they see that as their opportunity to come and make themselves a hero. So they're going to get a name in the history books. And you have people like Obama who are just totally self-absorbed and just completely obsessed with making, their popularity. And, you just end up with this cycle of constant, war followed by, an insurgency followed by a war when those insurgents eventually get their stranglehold on territory. And it's never going to end. It's just never going to end until we just end government entirely, until we stop putting guns in the hands of psychopaths.
Hear, hear, and I hope that's sooner rather than later. But I hope that, well, maybe you can clear this up for me. Can you give an example, other than historical examples, what's a reason why an interventionist is wrong? If we know nothing about history, and let's say we're starting from a blank slate, why is the person who says, like the previous caller, we should go in there and intervene and stop those people who are killing, or else there's going to be a genocide, and we can't stand back and watch that? So I'm playing devil's advocate here. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, just the term itself, intervention, what does it mean? It basically boils down to putting your nose in somebody else's business. I mean, if you aren't part of the attack, if you aren't the one that's defending yourself, and you actively, inject your own forces into an ongoing conflict overseas, then you're obviously an aggressor. Like, you don't have a reason to be where you are, but you're intervening on behalf of some notions, some beliefs, somebody else's, agendas. So it's wrong because you aren't meant to be there in the first place. If you were meant to be there at that certain time, you'd already be there. To inject yourself into it, that's wrong on every count.
Now, bear with me. I'm going to put on my New World Order hat and ask you, aren't we all just citizens of the world? So shouldn't we be involved in any situation where there's a genocide happening?
Yeah, man, we're all brothers and sisters, and we should just, hug it out, No, man. We're all people, but we're all individuals. We're not part of this massive collective that, gets to decide, who lives and who dies, who's good and who's bad. I mean, basically, it's just nonsense. It's more manipulation, basically.
Very good. Any other thoughts that you want to share with us tonight?
Screw the NFL, but beyond that, nope, I'm good.
All right, terrific. Thanks for your call tonight, Shinobi. And you can join Shinobi over in the chat room at my website. Go to derekj.me, and he's over there chatting with some of the other listeners. So thank you, Shinobi. Always appreciate your thoughts. And you can share your thoughts by dialing in 443-424-8347 or send a Skype contact request to PeaceNewsNow. Let's continue. There's a story we could go on the topic of ISIS, and I'm sure it'll come up again. As I teased at the beginning of the show, there are a couple of headlines. Like, White House has no estimate on the costs of war in ISIS. It's just going to be a blank check for the U.S. military to buy as many bombers and war tanks and destroyer ships as they want, and just put the American taxpayer on the bill. That's your children and grandchildren who will be paying for this unnecessary war in Syria. So don't think that you're not going to be responsible for it to some degree. If you're here knowing about it, take personal responsibility to do something. Speak out to end this unnecessary war. Now let's turn to what's happening here at home as the feds are intervening in Los Angeles to stop terrorism and military recruitment. Here we go from LATimes.com. The Obama administration has chosen Los Angeles as one of 3 cities to launch pilot programs aimed at deterring U.S. citizens from traveling abroad to fight with militant groups and to prevent attacks by fighters from returning Syria and Iraq. What is really going on? Are they trying to prevent people from leaving the U.S. and joining terrorist organizations? It seems like that's what they're doing. Call in, share your thoughts. This is Peace News.
Kay Oliver is part of the Twayambe Women's Group in Uganda. She gets old clothes, fixes them up, washes them, and then sells them at the Jinja market. She was quite happy with her success at her business, but realized that a sewing machine would really help her make more money to take care of her 2 kids. Free Talk Live helped her get that sewing machine. You can help us help more people by getting your coffee through coffee.freetalklive.com. Make a difference, 1 cup at a time. Get a free pound, try out the subscription, cancel at any time, coffee.freetalklive.com.
Andrew Michael Jones is a liberty-loving activist and participant in the Free State Project. He's also been accused of being one of the administrators of the infamous Silk Road Anonymous Black Marketplace. Andrew is facing a federal trial for multiple crimes with no victim. Whether or not he's the Silk Road administrator named Inigo, he has not been accused of harming anyone. In fact, the Silk Road is actually an amazing advancement that has reduced the overall harm of the black market to both customers and drug sellers. Whether or not he did it, Andrew, like alleged Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht, deserves the support of people who love liberty. Visit drewsdefense.org to learn more and contribute to his defense. You can donate via PayPal or in Bitcoin, as I did. That's drewsdefense.org. Drew's family does not have much, and his parents have put up their home and both retirement incomes to secure a $1 million bond on Andrew. He's currently on 24/7 house arrest and is prohibited from touching any device that could connect to the internet. Please contribute to his defense fund via drewsdefense.org.
The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.FM on your social networking profile. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.lrn.fm. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm. You'll likely buy all kinds of things online. Amazon is the largest online retailer. You can get what you need at the same great prices, and LRN gets a cut. Please do your online shopping at shop.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Did you know you can get news updates about what's happening with the Liberty Radio Network delivered in the way you prefer? You can sign up for our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. Plus, you can stay in the loop by joining our Facebook profile at facebook.lrn.fm or follow us at Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm. It's all free, so sign up now at updates.lrn.fm for news updates delivered to your email box, facebook.lrn.fm to follow our Facebook page, and twitter.lrn.fm to receive our tweets.
Sources are confirming that a man currently on a van walking down the same city block for the past 45 minutes, periodically shaking his head and speaking brusquely to the individual on the other line.
Please, just give me 1 second to make one point.
Onlookers speculate that the man is in his early 30s and is either talking to a coworker, boss, or possibly his wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, attorney, or some sort of client of some kind.
They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Thus far, the man has walked by the same cafe over 10 times.
You know, when I was coming in, I heard him say, "You're just not listening. That's the problem." So, sounds like a pretty frustrating phone call.
He's running his hand through his hair again.
I cannot believe this. I literally cannot believe this.
In addition to poking the air when making a point, the frustrated man has also been observed repeatedly massaging his forehead. Thus far, it remains unclear where the man was headed before taking his call, or whether or not the call itself is making him late for something.
This is the Onion News Network.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
Welcome back to Peace News. We're talking about the new war in Syria and the continuing wars in the Middle East. Headline from antiwar.com. 6 weeks in, U.S. airstrikes haven't budged ISIS in Iraq. The U.S. air war is not going nearly as well as officials claim. We'll get to that story. But first, let's finish up this one from LATimes.com, where the Obama administration has chosen Los Angeles as one of 3 cities to launch pilot programs aimed at U.S. citizens from traveling abroad to fight with militant groups and prevent attacks by fighters returning from Syria and Iraq. The program is modeled on an effort in the United Kingdom that works with local communities to identify potential homegrown jihadists and terrorists. The official who gave this information asked not to be named. Oh, interesting. The effort, which has also been launched in Boston and Minneapolis, is part of a broader strategy known as countering violent extremism. It's part of a broader strategy, part of a pilot program first announced by Attorney General Eric Holder last week. The administration is looking for new ways to intervene in the lives of people who may be considering an attack against the U.S. So this is their idea. Dream up that there may be people in the U.S. who want to do harm and have anti-terror locations in Boston, Minneapolis, and Los Angeles? Really? Like, how effective do they really think that's going to be? What's their real goal here? Or are they just stupid? Federal agencies, including the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, are working to identify people who may be interested in traveling to Syria to try and persuade them not to go, as well as finding people who have fought with jihadist groups and monitoring them when they return to the U.S. The administration has a coordinator in Los Angeles and another in Boston reaching out to schools, healthcare providers, and community groups to get their help in monitoring, deterring the radicalization of people who may be susceptible to recruitment by groups such as the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Now this in itself, I have to interject for a moment and say, this is not a terrible goal. The goal of intervening before individuals who seek to do citizens of the U.S. harm, intervening before people do harm makes a lot of sense. That's something that I would want a government to do. If I opted in to a voluntary government, one of the things I would want is protection. And it would require that there be groups like the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security doing certain jobs like monitoring people who may be dangerous threats. I can accept that. I just think that they're doing it poorly. I don't have an objection to a group of people looking out for all American safety, saying, hey, these are some dangerous people, they may like to organize with other terrorists, and we have to watch them, make sure that they're not planning on blowing up any buildings or anything. That's legit. That's the kind of job I want governments to be doing. It's just, I think they often, too often, preoccupy themselves with intervening in other ways that cause harm rather than prevent it. This is one that just seems like an ineffective strategy at best. I mean, targeting 3 cities and saying, okay, this is where the terrorists are going to come. I mean, what if the terrorist comes from Kansas? You know, I mean, you've got nothing near there. So what are the FBI groups going to do from Boston to prevent a terrorist in Idaho from going to Syria and joining the fight? I mean, it seems a little ridiculous to use this sort of monitoring and try and dissuade people from joining a fight. Wouldn't it be easier to remove the motivation for the fighting by ending the airstrikes and interventions? Seems it would be easier and more cost-effective to me just to remove the motivation to join the fight by stopping the violence today. Might also be a good idea because the airstrikes haven't been effective. Take a look at this article from antiwar.com. 6 weeks in, U.S. airstrikes haven't budged ISIS in Iraq. 6 weeks of ever-intensifying U.S. airstrikes have had Obama administration officials hyping the progress of their new war in Iraq. The situation on the ground, however, doesn't bear that out. Far from progress, the situation on the ground appears virtually unchanged. In 6 weeks, with only a handful of frontline towns changing hands and ISIS controlling the same massive chunk of Iraq it did when the U.S. started launching attacks. The airstrikes changed ISIS tactics and have them no longer leaving expensive U.S.-made vehicles out in the open, but it's a distinction without a difference, as the group is simply harder to hit and no less entrenched. Secretary of State John Kerry's attempts to spin the new Iraqi government as a success story also doesn't seem to be producing any results, as the Sunni tribal factions that were so opposed to the Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki aren't running to get behind his successor, a member of the same party who holds many of the same positions. The administration's decision to launch an air war on ISIS, despite no chance it would actually accomplish any of its stated goals, was not accidental. Rather, it will inevitably give way to a new push from congressional hawks to further escalate the war as a face-saving measure. Exactly what's going to happen. They say, well, this was a failure so far, but we just need a little more, you see. The reason ISIS hasn't budged is because we haven't done enough. If we just spend another $16 trillion, then there will be peace in the world. It's ridiculous. And I don't think the American people are going to buy it for much longer. It's destroying the dollar. It's destroying people's savings as the American empire uses the hidden tax of inflation, spending untold amounts of money on war and using your money to pay for it. Well, there's an article at LouRockwell.com that I think describes exactly what's going on here, and it's titled The Zombie Culture. This is by ButlerSchafer.com, and he begins with a quote by Lucretius. I'll leave you with this, and then we'll come back with this story, The Zombie Culture. The fear that Acheron be sent packing, which troubles the life of man from its deepest depths, suffuses all with the blackness of death, and leaves no delight clean and pure. What does that cryptic quote mean? We'll explain on the other end, plus we'll have your calls. This is Peace News.
What if the key to achieving liberty in your lifetime was to move together with others who think like you? Liberty activists are joining the Free State Project, which is over 70% of the way to its goal of 20,000 participants. And they're already making the move to New Hampshire. The successes are piling up and are proving the Free State Project is a real movement and no longer just a great idea. When you're planning your move, consider Keene. Keene is famous for its civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and there's plenty of political opportunity as well. From demonstrations and vigils to outreach and volunteering, there's a lot going on in Keene. Keene is the liberty media capital of the world, with television, talk radio, and more, all originating here. Though it's more than just activism, with regular social events each week. See what's happening at freekeene.com and get connected with video, audio, free books, a forum, and activist tools you can download and use in your area at freekeene.com. That's freekeene.com. On LRN.FM, we talk a lot about alternative currencies. Did you know that now you can buy gold, silver, and other precious metals with bitcoins? LRN.FM has partnered with Amaji Metals to bring you great prices on beautiful .999 fine silver, as well as gold, platinum, and other metals. Check out their selection and pay with bitcoins or Federal Reserve notes at metal.lrn.fm. That's metal.lrn.fm.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way,
love as your guide,
and liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
Imagine someone in your community getting in their car, turning on the radio, and hearing the Liberty Radio Network. You can make that vision a reality with your own micro radio station. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how you can put our programs on the air in your area. You can have LRN.FM running around the clock, and you can even add in your own local shows. Building a radio station is simple, but programming isn't. That's where LRN.FM comes in. Learn more at broadcast.lrn.fm. That's broadcast.lrn.fm.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippies! On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. Filmed by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadavi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Listen to LRN.FM on any phone, anytime. 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
Welcome back. This is Peace News. You can join in by sending a Skype contact request to PeaceNewsNow or by dialing in 443-424-8347. We're talking about ISIS, the wars in the Middle East, specifically the new war in Syria, as the U.S. military began airstrikes last night, and we saw clips of the rubble and 8 civilian casualties suffered within the last 24 hours. Will this intervention work this time? Well, we've gone through an article detailing how ISIS hasn't budged after 6 weeks of airstrikes in Iraq, but maybe airstrikes in Syria will be different. Yeah, I teased a story from antiwar.com about the zombie culture. I encourage you to read that article. It's terrific, but we just won't have time to go deeply into it, and that's what it really deserves. So I'm going to skip to do a bait and switch and skip to another antiwar.com article titled, Why the Wars? Bionic Mosquito writes yesterday, I'm reading Advance to Barbarism by F.J.P. Veal. I will, as has come to be my practice, offer more than one post based on this book. I'll begin with a topic upon which Veal spends only a few words, but one which sheds light on perhaps the main purpose of war. At least war in the era of life in a time of something more than primitive living. The various wars are often explained by the critics as wars for resources, usually oil, but also natural gas, transit pipelines, etc. I've come to believe, and first came across this notion at the Daily Bell, that wars are for control. Control of the people. The ultimate productive and renewable resource on the planet. I came across some comments within Veal's book that can be interpreted as supportive of this view. Quote, "To a hunting community, a prisoner of war is merely an extra mouth to feed. Generally, prisoners taken in battle would be disposed of, similarly with a stone club. They fought over game, the meaningful natural resource of the time. But as soon as the state of civilization had been reached in which there were fields to be tilled, walls, temples, palaces, and tombs to be built, and mines to be worked, a prisoner of war ceased to be merely an extra mouth to feed, and came to possess a definite economic value as a slave. They fought to capture labor, the most meaningful natural resource in even the most rudimentary division of labor economy. For much of history, the labor captured was slave labor. But it needs not be so. It isn't so today, at least not literally. I do not intend to trivialize actual slavery by comparing it to what we have today. At the same time, it's worth noting the yoke under which we struggle. To mention only a few points: fiat money, taxation, regulation, prohibitions of all sorts. To note the effectiveness of the current system, it's sufficient to point out that the slaves at least knew they were under the whip of a master. Today's masters have developed a system of control so invisible that many cannot see it. With the franchise to vote and otherwise petition the state, we, the people, we are conditioned to believe that we are the ones in control. Most believe they are free. War expands the franchise, bringing more people under one or more of many globalizing institutions. Central bank-controlled money and credit, international finance, centrally managed trade. Opportunities for manipulation by the World Bank, IMF, WTO, and the UN. Investment opportunities are opened for the crony capitalists. When you've developed a system that allows you to skim a few points off of every transaction, why care about oil? Bringing more people under the yoke of that system allows you to skim a few points off of more people. This is the reason for the wars. To capture labor. To make the labor work for the elite. It used to be done via slaves. Today, look in the mirror. Excellent. Excellent article by Bionic Mosquito at LouRockwell.com. You know, so often that website comes, you know, there's this gem, they hit on these points of anti-war and they do it so well. There's just nothing more to say. I mean, I don't want to, like he said, insult those who suffered under actual slavery by continuing to compare what we live under today as slavery. But if 100% taxation is total slavery, what's 50% taxation? Is that freedom? Is it half freedom? 99% of your income going to the feds, would that be not slavery? Is that slavery? If you get to keep 1%? At what point is it not slavery when you're forced to send the fruits of your labor to Washington, D.C.? The productive people are squeezed of their value, disincentivized from creating more value for others by being punished for generating excess in this world. Why are there people starving? Why are there people without food and shelter while there are millions of homes that lie vacant? You can bet it's because of an invention by politicians. Laws that keep the free market, the free exchange of value and ideas, from reaching perfection or efficiency, or coming anywhere near efficiency. There's so many levels of manipulation through politicians, through the central banks, that to emerge out of this swamp, this toxic environment for productivity, and evolve into a culture and society of peace, freedom, and voluntary exchange, it's going to take some serious effort and time. If you believe this is a project worth embarking on, I sincerely ask you listening to this broadcast right now, to join me and the others who are working on the Freedom Project here in New Hampshire. I see this as the best hope for humanity, the best hope for freedom that the world has ever seen. The Freedom Project has existed for millions of years. For as long as there have been productive people and brutes to become their parasites, the productive class has worked to shrug off these parasites and be a host no longer, to only produce value for those who exchange value for value, to make the world a peaceful place where self-ownership reigns and not slavery and violence and predation. We welcome your calls. This is Peace News.
If there was a place that liberty-minded people had been elected to political positions and were rolling back government, would you move there? If freedom lovers had secured a 20% voting bloc and can veto most bad bills, would you move? Well, the time has come to sign the pledge at freestateproject.org. These things have happened in New Hampshire, and you can join us and help. freestateproject.org. Sign up now at freestateproject.org.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.FM on your social networking profile. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.lrn.fm. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm. It's my firm belief that the AMP program is the best use of your charitable dollar among liberty-oriented groups. Support all your favorite organizations, but make sure you give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Boost Kid Essentials Nutritionally Complete Drink, providing your picky eater with essential nutrition and great taste in one drink. Visit us at kidessentials.com. To make sure your kids eat healthy, follow the 5-a-day plan. Serve 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit daily. Remember, a serving could just mean a piece of fruit or a half cup of veggies. If your kids are picky eaters, ask a nutritionist about other sources. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
If you can't listen to the Liberty Radio Network's internet streams, free satellite channel, or radio affiliates, no worries. You can listen to LRN.FM from any phone, anywhere. Add this number to your phone: 213-493-0309. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The Liberty Radio Network listen lines are locked into our stream 24 hours a day. Call 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict, or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
You can interact with other LRN listeners on our message board at forum.lrn.fm. That's forum.lrn.fm.
Welcome back. This is Peace News, 443-424-8347, or Skype PeaceNewsNow. We left off talking about the promise of liberty in our lifetime by the Free State Project and those who participate at freestateproject.org. It's a project, the idea being that 20,000 liberty-loving human beings will all convene in the same geographic location for the purpose of getting active for liberty. Meaning they want to reduce the size of government to the maximum role of protecting life, liberty, and property. Many people who moved to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project are anarchists like myself, and we want no governments or voluntary governments. That would be my ideal. I don't have no problem with governments or people providing protection services, fire services, road services. I just think they should be on a voluntary basis instead of a coercive, mandatory basis. There was an article reposted to freekeen.com just yesterday recalling the recent failure by the voters of Scotland to vote themselves independence. The vote was 45% of voters in Scotland for independence and 55% opposed or pro-dependence. Dependence on Westminster, that is the United Kingdom, the Queen of England, and their welfare payments, basically. But speaking of the Free State Project and independence, Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project, the student who wrote the paper that invented the idea of the Free State Project, he spoke out and wrote an article that made it to the Washington Post titled Where Scotland failed, could New Hampshire succeed? The article is recounted by Ian Freeman at freekeen.com. He writes, as it stands, approximately 1 in 4 Americans support their state seceding from the U.S., which is an excellent starting point to begin a discussion on the issue. The more we can talk about the idea of seceding, the more realistic it will become. So now is a great time to talk to friends, family, and coworkers about what happened in Scotland and why we need to seriously consider the same thing here. While the Reuters poll on secession shows New Englanders being the least likely to support secession, we all know that the Granite Staters are not of the same mindset as the rest of New England. Unfortunately, the poll doesn't break out individual states' responses. Hopefully, we'll see a New Hampshire-only poll conducted at some point in the future. Meanwhile, we need more liberty-loving people to move here as part of the Free State Project, and for people to start discussions with loved ones about this idea. The Foundation for New Hampshire Independence has some good outreach information on the issue. Their website is nhendependence.org. Let's make this a reality. Here's Jason Soren's editorial. Quote, on Thursday, a majority of Scots voted against independence from the United Kingdom. Their desire for self-determination, though, is easy to understand. The same impulse motivates present-day demands for federalism and state autonomy in the United States. Over the past decade, for instance, the Free State Project has been drawing libertarians to the relatively libertarian-friendly state of New Hampshire to pursue smaller government. Could New Hampshire or another state ever hold its own vote on independence? From the perspective of the libertarians, there are good reasons for frustration with the federal government. The United States is a very large country, and as Francis Fukuyama noted in America in Decay, a recent essay for Foreign Affairs magazine, the nation's massive size and clunky institutions have made the country less and less governable. Bureaucratic kludge continues to grow. The number of pages in the Federal Register, one indicator of regulatory burden, had grown to over 80,000 in 2013, a quadrupling of the 1970 figure. The United States' economic freedom ranking in the world has fallen from 2nd in 2000 to 19th in 2011. Its government now enjoys the twin ignominies of incarcerating and shooting dead more of its own citizens per capita than any other industrialized country, by far, even though its violent crime rate is not much above average. That last statistic bears repeating. The U.S. government incarcerates and shoots dead more of its own citizens per capita than any other industrialized country by far. Political scientists have found that more populous countries are more decentralized because governments become less and less effective over larger populations. Spain, Britain, Belgium, Italy, and Canada have all decentralized over the past 50 years. But the United States has gone in the opposite direction. In 1913, according to the Census Bureau, local governments raised 56% of all taxes in the U.S., and state governments another 12%. Today, those numbers have flipped. The federal government raises more than 55% of all taxes, and local governments account for only 15%. A more workable country would let state and local governments go their own way on more policies, but a more just country would also be based firmly on the principle of free association. Free association is the original American way. The country was founded on an act of secession. Consider New Hampshire's possible future. While the Free State Project does not endorse independence for New Hampshire or any specific legislation, its statement of intent endorses government strictly limited to protecting people's rights. Free Staters generally support more autonomy for the state. If the federal government won't let New Hampshire opt out of its vast federal leviathan, then what? New Hampshire joined the Union on the condition that it remain a fully sovereign state, free to break the tie with the United States if that link were no longer in its interest. Article 7 of the New Hampshire Constitution declares that, quote, the people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state, and do forever hereafter shall exercise and enjoy every power, jurisdiction, and right pertaining thereto, which is not or may not hereafter be, by them expressly delegated to the United States of America in Congress assembled. Banning secession would break this original agreement. And by that reading of the text, Article 7 of the New Hampshire Constitution, it sounds almost to me like the people who wrote the original New Hampshire Constitution got the idea that each man and woman is a state unto themselves. Here they say, the people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state. That means me. That means you have the right to govern yourself as a sovereign state. On some level, Washington must know this. Sorens continues. If Texas, Vermont, or Alaska wanted to break away to pursue distinctly conservative or progressive policies within a basically just liberal democratic regime, then what? Seems unlikely that the U.S. government would use force against Americans guilty of nothing but believing in government by literal consent of the governed. More likely, it would make the same choice the British government made for Scotland. Let the people vote. Well, there's no vote for New Hampshire independence yet, but thanks to the people positioning themselves into power in the State House, that could be coming up for a vote in the years to come. We'll be back on Sunday. This is Peace News.
Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. That does it. It was sort of an abrupt ending this episode because I wasn't watching the clock very well, and I apologize for that, but we will return on Sunday. If you enjoyed this program, I ask you to support it by donating using the QR code you see on your screen here. That sends me Bitcoin. I'll close out the episode with a couple ads from LRN and the QR code a little bit bigger here. Thanks. Your donations are what power Peace News. Every donation counts.
Friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info. DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phone, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture.